by Benning. Darnell Nurse left it in the corner, gets up center. Perry scores! Corey Perry!
Lilia able to shake away from Solani. It's given away to Solani around in front. Score! Teemu Solani with the steal.
Three of the fans want one. Score! Off the floor! On the board! Paul Kariya!
So, I was thinking about the Man with No Name trilogy. Do you know what that is?
No.
So, it's a collection of 3 spaghetti westerns made by Sergio Leone featuring Clint Eastwood.
Okay.
It's Fistful of Dollars for a few dollars more, and then the most important one of the bunch is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Okay.
And I can't remember the order that they came out, but I know I saw The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly last. And the end of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly has a scene where Clint Eastwood's character finds a poncho, and it becomes like the signature thing that his character has in the other 2 movies. And they don't make a thing of it.
It just exists. It's just there.
It just is. It's just he finds a guy dying or / dead, and to give him some respect, he gives him his coat and takes the poncho instead. And then in Fistful of Dollars and Few Dollars More, he just has the poncho, and it's just a thing that he has, and it's like a whole like it's awesome. Like it's almost a character in itself, just because of like it being a poncho, the things that like allows him to do, as far as like hide one of his hands or hide, like in Fistful of Dollars, he hides a piece of armor, like a chest plate, under it. So when he just walks at the bad guy and he's just shooting him center mass, he's just hitting the plate, and Clint Eastwood just keeps getting back up and dude. You haven't watched Shoresy, so I know you're not going to watch these, but I cannot recommend those 3 movies enough. They are so good, and 2 of them are Fistful of Dollars and Few Dollars More are actually like rip-offs, remakes, whatever, of 2 different Japanese Kurosawa movies. And then The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is arguably one of the 10 greatest westerns of all time.
So I've seen parts, I know for sure, because growing up, like wherever, either like my dad was watching it, or we'd go to my aunt's a few times. She used to watch just old westerns all the time, so I know it's probably been on, and like it's been on, and I've been in the same room, but I have not watched it. But dude, it sounds interesting. It sounds like one I'll watch. And I say that to you without trying to get your hopes up, because I've told you I'd watch Shoresy for almost 2 years probably now.
Yeah, it's got to be close too, because the 3rd season is about to come out. So
yeah,
but it is what it is.
There's hope. There's hope.
They are 3 wonderful movies. My favorite is For a Few Dollars More. I think inarguably The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the best one, and Fistful of Dollars is just a really good story. And it's cool too because they're fairly low budget, so it has a lot of the same actors in them. And sometimes the actors are good guys, sometimes they're bad guys, sometimes they're both. Like it's fun. It's cool.
I'm done. Was there a link for this story to this? I felt like it was going somewhere.
I would say if I was drafting for like a movie collection, it would be very hard for me not to take The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, or A Few Dollars More. I will say that much.
Okay. So why don't you explain what we're doing here today? Because this is your baby.
This is my baby via Chad. It's
Yes.
Chad and mine's bastard child, where he told me about the idea, and then I tweaked it to work for us. So what we are going to be doing today, as we said at the end of the last podcast, is a draft pick draft, basically. So we decided to go for the first 3 rounds plus a couple bonuses that we'll get to later. But we are going to draft players that we think the team can or should draft. It'll be 1 pick each for the first rounds, and then 2 picks for each pick we get in the later rounds. So that way, you know, because the farther in you get, obviously, the more variance there is, and that kind of stuff, and it's always weird. And then each pick is worth a certain amount of points, and after the draft, if any of us have any of them right, we'll see who has the most points.
So realistically, we're walking out of here with one of us probably getting the number 3 pick, right? And then whoever gets that right walks away with all the points.
I mean, there's a very good chance that the winner could have between 5 and 10 points. Yes, I very much think that. However, there are bonuses that are worth. The bonuses are all worth 20, and then there's one wild card question that's worth 20, and a wild card that's worth 50. So this is going to give us an opportunity to talk about some of the different players or prospects in the draft that we like, and talk about like kind of like drafting theory, and so much as like where this team is at, what they should be looking to do, the types of players we think that they can and should be targeting, and how we kind of see it go from there.
I'm down. I'm ready for it.
But
This draft is just very, very interesting this year. Like, so one, it's not. I haven't dove into it as much as other drafts, but it's more so just because it's a big jumbled mess after 3, and we don't pick again until presumably 31 or 32, and it's just like that middle of the pack bunch from 4 down to, I would say, 13, maybe 14. They could go anywhere in that mix. Like, there's obviously some favorites to go a bit higher, but with the way things have moved this year, and some guys who have fallen a bit, and some certain situations that guys are in, or late guys are late risers at the end of this season, like, it's really all over the place. It's an interesting one.
yeah, and I think I think I think it's an interesting top 5, and then it becomes an interesting top 15, and then it becomes a mess. And to see what happens in that mess, and if anybody in general trades into the middle to try to get back into that kind of definitive 15-16 group of players that people are a bit more confident about. But there's a lot of weird and interesting picks later in the draft and in the middle rounds and things like that. So, there's going to be some opportunities here for some team to get lucky and maybe get somebody special in the 3rd or 4th round here, which, is one of the few things that you can't count on, but I think historically has proven to be one of the biggest contributing factors to successful teams, is having, 1 or 2 late round picks that makes a big difference. And the Ducks already have that with Troy Terry in 5. So maybe you can count that towards one of them. But it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be a mess. I'm very, very excited. And I know that we feel like there's not some suspense. There's really no suspense around the 3rd pick. But I do want to start with a simple question, Eddie.
Yep.
Why haven't we talked more about Zane Perrick?
I mean, listen, we should. I feel like he's in that range where he should go there. I mean, he had a historic offensive production in the OHL, so that alone should get him in that conversation. I don't know why he doesn't get put in the same conversation as a Lev Shunov or even a Kemchuk in some cases. Like, I know he started to, and obviously Saginaw, their run in the playoffs got ended by London, but then they were, I believe, the hosts of the Memorial Cup, so they were back in it. So they got a chance to be in the. I think they won too, did they not?
I believe they did, because I believe that's where Dionisio is.
Yeah, right. So that helps his stock a little bit. So I've seen him come up in the conversation a bit more. Obviously, like, he deserves to based on that season. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, the one thing with Zane Perrick is every time I watch him play, I expect to go look at his elite prospects page and see like he's 5'8", 5'9", like just the way he plays and the skill that he possesses. But he's not small. Like he's 6 foot, exactly 6 foot, listed by most sources. So he's an interesting one to look at. I think for the Ducks, if you're drafting, and maybe you shouldn't draft like this, but if you're drafting based off of positional need or profile of player and the need of a profile of player, I feel like the Ducks have similar players to Zane Perrick in the system. I feel like that's why he hasn't come up as much.
So I think that's the thing about it that's interesting, and this is, I was just kind of thinking about this today, honestly, and he was obviously someone that, like, you're doing like the reading and stuff like that. And he comes up a lot. Like, real quick, like the Elite Prospects Guide, which is fucking perfect, has like different categories, and they do like rankings and stuff like that for different things. For four-way mobility, Zane Perrick is first. For the offensive defenseman, he's first. For vision, he's third. For the highest ceiling, he's third. For transition defenseman, he's fourth. Now, none of that has anything to do with defense, and he is a defenseman. So that is where you start to get into some concerns as far as his long-term viability and stuff like that. But again, his quote-unquote shades of is Quinn Hughes and Roman Josi, which means a dynamic puck-moving defenseman. If you're the Ducks, you're looking at Pavel Mintyukov and Olen Zellweger and saying, we have dynamic transition puck-moving defenders who can create at the other end.
Yeah.
And I can certainly understand the argument that maybe you're looking for someone with more defensive acumen, which is why we've talked about Silliep so much, right? His ability to be that premier shutdown, or his potential to be that premier shutdown defenseman, creates a very enticing foil for what the Ducks already have in their system. That being said, the Ducks have a lot of left-handed defensemen and not a lot of high-end right-handed defensemen. Tristan Luneau at this point has the highest ceiling on the right side, and while I think highly of him, I think Zane Perrick has a much higher ceiling. And to that point, I will wonder, is it the worst thing to have a top pairing of potentially Mintyukov and Perrick? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
He's just someone that we hadn't talked about, and the more I sat with it, him only being 6', 180 is somewhat concerning. But again, you've got Hellison, you've got Warren, you've got Smith, or Connor Smith, you've got Rodwin Dionicio, you've got Pavel Mintyukov isn't small. Tristan Luneau has decent size on him. There are players later in the draft who have size. There will be ways for the team to add size, and adding that kind of dynamism to the back end, especially with what we're seeing with how important that is in terms of creating a sustained attack, adding more offensive upside to, what has been historically a shitty power play, even before this bad team. Like, the 2010s, the power play was terrible too.
Yeah.
So it was just an interesting question to me, I guess, is the way I would bring it up.
Yeah, like I think it's the same thing as in a sense of why maybe, and I always mess up his name, Zeev Buium.
Buium. I think it's Buium.
Buium. Yeah, that makes more sense. So I feel it's the same reason we haven't talked about Buium as well. And I know Buium's left-handed, but they're a very similar profile in terms of being elite offensive defenseman. Buium's ranked Elite Prospects #1 transition defenseman, #4 in vision, #4 offensive defenseman. So he's right in that kind of same category. Maybe not as good of a skater and as good as a shooter as Perrick is, but he's in that range, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people have him in that kind of 5 to 10 range. I think it's because of where the Ducks are drafting, right? Is because we have them at 3. and they're just a bit above that mess, I say, of kind of like 4 to 10, where all these guys are projected to go within. You could put Yakemchuk in that conversation as well. Is like it's just where they're at. Being there at number 3, I think, is why we don't talk about these guys, because they are excellent prospects, and right now it's really up in the air on who could become the best defenseman out of this draft. I think Lev Shunov maybe has the slight edge at this point when you ask the consensus, but any of these guys we've mentioned could become the best defenseman from this draft, and it just feels like a bit of a reach to take them at 3 at this point. But if the Ducks are drafting 5 or 6, I think we'd definitely be talking about Yakemchuk, we'd be talking about Perek. Buyam, again, being left-handed, is probably not on the radar. Like, unless you liked him a lot more than the plethora of right-handed defensemen that are available, the Ducks just desperately need an elite right-handed defenseman in the system. So that's probably why he doesn't get put in that conversation. But yeah, for me, it's less of not acknowledging them and more of where the Ducks are drafting. They're just kind of not in that range, or at least in not most people's rankings of being in that range for them to take at 3.
No, I think that's fair. And I will say, we talked a little bit before the show, and I decided, you just have to deal with it, that you're getting the first pick. So I will ask you, Edward, with the first pick in the Forever Mighty draft pick draft, who is your selection?
This is very tough because obviously Celebrini goes 1, and the reports we've heard lately is that Lev Shunov is going to go 2 to Chicago.
Right.
Part of me wants to just operate as the case that Lev Shunov goes 2, because if he was available at 3, I think he'd be my pick. But I don't think he's going to be there, so I don't want to waste my 5 points, because I really am kind of in the camp now, just based on what I read, that Chicago is leaning in.
I agree with you completely.
So then it comes down to guys we mentioned, Yakemchuk, maybe Perek, because if you're looking at right-handed defensemen, those are kind of the next 2 best guys after that. Obviously, Dickinson, Siliev, Buyam get brought into that conversation, but they're lefties, so you throw them in the mix if the Ducks are really looking for a defenseman at that point. Demidov is probably consensus the best prospect available at number 3, and honestly, if this was me drafting as who I would take, if I was the Ducks at 3, I'd probably pick Ivan Demidov as my pick. But ultimately, I'm here to win, and I'm here to get points. And I think if it goes Celebrini, Lifshunov, the Ducks walk up and take Caden Lindstrom as
Caden Lindstrom. Wow, let's go.
I just have a feeling that, based off who they've drafted before, what we've heard from Pat Verbeek and his strategy in the last draft, and what the type of players that they've approached and gone for, and high compete players, you really don't get more of a player that fits that mold of what the Ducks have been looking for than Caden Lindstrom in this year's draft, unless obviously you could take Macklin Celebrini at first overall. So again, he's not my favorite of favorite picks, but it fits the mold of what the Ducks are looking for, and it has that air of what they kind of used to do. Now it's very high to make that gamble, but taking a gamble on a guy who missed most of the second half of the season, and when he did come back was dealing with 2 different injuries. So when you're looking at production, 27 goals and 46 points in 32 games, even if you extend that across a full season, it doesn't get anywhere near some of the production that we've seen from prospects, even in the same league as Caden Lindstrom. But then when you break down the rest of his game, and you think, man, if this guy was healthy across the entire season, he could have been in that conversation, right, with Macklin Celebrini. How much did that hand injury and back injury really affect his production? Mm-hmm. It just makes me think they'll take the gamble and they'll take him. And he could be a center. So again, now you've got McTavish, you've got Zegras, you've got Cutter Gauthier, all potential center wings. Caden Lindstrom gets thrown into that conversation now as a guy who he has a size and ability to play center at the National Hockey League. Will he play center? I don't know. It just depends. From what I've read, not too many people see a lot of centers play the way he does. He plays more of a winger type style, just a big, powerful, he likes to drive to the net type player. So it gives you options, right? We've seen McTavish shift to the wing. We've seen Ziegler shift to the wing. Carter Gauthier played center, but has also played wing in the past. So it just gives you a plethora of options. I like the floor that he brings. And I think if everything comes together, the big question is kind of are his puck skills and his hockey sense. But if that comes together and is at least at NHL average, this is a guy who can do some damage and be one of the premier power forwards in the NHL. So I just think that fits the mold for what the Ducks are looking to do and the type of team that they're looking to build. And it does scratch an itch a little bit of having a player who is a goal scorer, right? 27 goals in 32 games. He's got one of the better shots in the draft this year. So it does kind of, it covers a base need. We talked about needing a right-handed defenseman and needing a premier goal scorer. And I think going out and drafting Caden Lindstrom certainly does that.
God, I love it. I did not think that's who you were going to take.
Third best shot according to Elite Prospects, right? Ranked third for offensive forward, fourth for the highest ceiling, fourth for the highest floor at the same time as well, fifth for best transition forward, and first for power forward prospects and rankings. And their little elevator pitches. He's the ultimate power forward prospect. Speed, skills, smarts, and inside driven playmaking keeps getting better. Steepest upward trajectory in the draft. It just kind of screams like this is the guy you go for. Because what did we talk about too? In taking a bit of a swing for a guy who could potentially become the best player in the draft. It's very tough to do that at 3, but you know what I mean? Like, these are the types of picks the Ducks have to make. We talked about Silyev in our last show, and maybe you take him because if everything pans out for this guy, he'll be a unicorn-type player, right? One of one in the National Hockey League. So I feel like Caden Lindstrom kind of falls into that category as well. If everything pans out, then there aren't going to be too many players like him. And he's going to be very, very difficult to play against. He really just doesn't do anything wrong. He does everything kind of well. And there's a few categories, obviously shooting, physicality, where he is just kind of shades above the rest.
So, I keep going back to, like you said, the last conversation we had about drafting for that upside, drafting for that potential, looking for someone who is going to add a dynamic to this team that either it doesn't already have or it doesn't have at a level commensurate with what that pick can bring. That's why I've been a big fan of Yakimchuk. That's why I've been a big fan of Silyev and Demidov, because of the types of players that they can turn into. Again, Pronman has Yakimchuk as the second best defenseman in the class for him. I think there's so much there. There are some concerns about his skating, his defensive kind of focus, things like that. Ultimately, I'm picking a player that I think could just fundamentally change the makeup of this Ducks core. Mm-hmm. And I'm taking Tijagila.
Wow. I like it. I don't hate it. Man. I think I sent you that little blurb in the chat earlier.
I was worried you were going to take him.
Yeah, that end of season production on where did I send that to? Oh yeah, his last 38 games, he had 20 regular season games, 31 points, 16 goals, 15 points and 9 goals in 11 playoff games, and then at the U18s he had 12 points and 6 goals in 7 games. So it's not out of the question, man, that they could take a swing and take him there.
He is by all accounts a just smaller version of his father in the way that he plays, not only in terms of his raw goal scoring talent, but also in terms of his physicality, his creativity. Mm-hmm. By the season's end, he had evolved into one of the draft's most dynamic goal scoring threats without losing his versatility and details. I just think as much as Cutter Gauthier has put a potentially high-end goal scorer into the lineup, I think taking a risk on a player like Iginla, who just, you can see him pairing well with Leo Carlsson, with Mason McTavish, with Trevor Zegras. There isn't a center that the Ducks have that you can't say, oh, he could totally play off of them and they would be perfect together.
Yeah.
I think the upside is significant enough here that is the swing I'm willing to take.
It's funny because we the last show, how much we kind of hyped up Ivan Demidov, and then we didn't take him. We're
Right.
like, I'm pretty sure we said multiple times, if he's there at 3, you have to take him. And then over researching and looking at and kind of diving back into things for the first time in a few months, I still love the kid. I still love him, but other guys just jumped in front, man. They just jumped in front of him in terms of what the Ducks should do and what I think they'll do.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I think, I like, if you're asking me what I think the best picks are for this, I do think it's Levshunov and probably Lindstrom, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can argue Silyev. I know a lot of people say if Levshunov goes second, they are hearing that Anaheim is going to take a defenseman, and that could probably be Silyev. Again, as I'm mentally preparing myself for the Ducks to take Sam Dickinson, which, as I sent this quote to you, I made a comment to Scott, a friend of mine, Scott Matla, who does Locked on Habs, writes for Eyes on the Prize. He said being in the lottery, or using a high pick to draft Sam Dickinson is like winning the lottery and buying a Honda Civic. It's not a bad car, and it's going to do all the things you need it to, but it is the most unexciting way to spend that money. I have a Honda Civic. Like, I literally drive a hatchback Civic. I love my fucking car. It's perfect. I'm not... If I had $1 million, a Civic isn't the car that I would buy.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't justify drafting Sam Dickinson and just being like, he has the highest floor. That's just the least inspiring choice. Maybe if the back end was a little bit more dynamic on the right side, maybe if it felt like we had our total set of core forwards, things like that. I can't do it. I just can't fucking do it. So I think for me, Iginla and Lindstrom, and again, like we said, like the noise is that Levshunov is probably going to go second, so neither of us took him. And then there's a lot of noise around, Wheeler kind of contradicted, said he had heard from others, contrary to what Cam Robinson had heard. Cam was basically saying that there were a lot of teams who didn't have Demidov in their top 5.
Yeah.
How much of that is gamesmanship, we'll never know. Wheeler said, I think there are actually a lot of teams that have him in their top 5. I think it makes a lot of sense for Anaheim to go that direction. I think he's dynamic, he's creative, he can firmly add to this group. I don't know if I think the team is going to do it. So with that in mind, I felt like basically taking the second best winger in the class.
I love it, man. It's a swing. I don't hate it at all. I think he's a great prospect. And if you do seriously think he is that guy, then there's no harm in taking him there, because you're not going to get him somewhere else. I do think he is a guy, because of his end of season production, that goes somewhere in that top 8. And you're not the chances of you trading up into that spot and getting him, I think, are low. I don't think he falls past Calgary, right? Like, if you're Calgary...
Oh, he won't. There's no way.
You have to, right? Like, you have to if he's there. I think if you're any team, obviously, you have to if he's there at 9. But, there's just something about him, obviously, the history in Calgary with his dad. Like, you can't let him fall if you're Calgary. So.
Not at all. You can't let it happen. All right, man. So, with the Oilers pick, which we have at 31-32, it's going to depend. At this point, it's looking like 31, so if that changes anything for you, then go for it. But what is your pick for 31?
Yeah, so I mean, I looked at a few different options. I had written down a ton of forwards
Uh-huh.
in bouncing back and forth whether I was going to take Levshinov at 3 and just kind of bank on maybe Chicago not going that way. But then obviously with all the news coming out and taking Caden Lindstrom at 3, I think they go defenseman. I know there's a pick at 35, but there are a lot of good defensemen that are going to be available in that kind of late first round area. A lot of right-handed defensemen as well. And for me, there is one kid that I think fits exactly what the Ducks need on that right side of defense, where they kind of have bit parts of that with some players. They've got, Noah Warren, who's got some pieces of this player's game. They've got Tristan Luneau, who's got pieces of this player's game, and obviously a little bit more in some areas. But they don't have a player like this really on the right or left side of defense. But I think with the plethora of attacking, quick, shifty defensemen we have on the left, to bring a player like this in on the right is I think the way to go. And my pick for 31 or 32 is going back to the WHL, Charlie Elick from the Brandon Wheat Kings. Yeah.
I like this pick a lot.
Yeah, he is. You'll love the player comp everywhere. I've looked at 4 different places in the player comp, and it's Braden Schneider. So
Yeah.
yeah, but man, he is a big kid, 6'3", or just over 6'3", and labeled by a lot of people as one of the best skaters in the draft, which is something you don't see too often. And he is mean. He's mean. Anybody who gets in his area, he likes to hit. He is one of the best shutdown defensemen in the draft. Elite Prospects has him ranked as the second best shutdown defenseman, the second best neutral zone defender, and the 5th hardest hitter in the entire draft. And he is just a menace, and I think it just works perfectly, man. We need somebody on the right who can skate for sure, because you look at obviously Zellweger and Minchikov and Leno. You need a player who can keep up with them, and that's the thing I said with Noah Warren, where you get kind of the physical side of things and the shutdown ability that Noah Warren has, but then you've got the speed to also keep up with the Zellwegers and the Minchikovs and keep up with the speed of play that the Ducks are looking to play. And then it's just a complete different profile to anything they have. The Ducks need a right-handed shutdown defenseman to go with this crop of offensive defensemen they have. And I just love this kid's game. Like, obviously the offense isn't a hallmark of this, but it's not for a lack of trying, which I like to see. Like, a lot of times you get these big defensemen who they are scared almost to make a play or to create with the puck on their stick, but he does that, right? Like, he has almost like a desire or want to try and create, and he looks for kind of these high danger passes. Now, not a lot of them really pan out. There's a lot that he fails to actually complete the pass or make the play, but the willingness to do that, I think, is great, because he's not going to be asked to do that. You've got the players we've already mentioned, the Minchikovs, the Luneaus, the Zellwegers, and likely he would hopefully be on the right side of either Minchikov or Zellweger at the National Hockey League level. So just the want and the desire and kind of the wherewithal to make those plays when he's going to be playing with players who are also thinking that same way, I think it just gels really well with what the Ducks are doing with their blue line. And then obviously everything else that comes with it, the mobility, being one of the premier shutdown defensemen, a guy who likes to go out there and just destroy everybody else on the ice and takes pride in that. I love the fit, man. I love the fit. I don't know if he's going to be there. He feels like a guy that some team's going to fall in love with and go in that 20 to 25 range or 20 to 30 range and wouldn't be there. But he'd be one that, obviously, if he is there at 31 or 32, I'd love them to take. Or if you could kind of move, say, pick 31, 32 and pick 58 to jump up to, like, mid-20s to take him, I'd love it.
Yeah, no, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. He was my second choice for this particular pick. There's a couple of players in this area I really like, but he was my second choice, and in a lot of the same ways, for exactly what you're talking about, right? It's about adding a specific thing that this team doesn't have. I mean, how much time have me and you spent on and off air talking about how much we would love for Braden Schneider to be on this team? And it's specifically because of what he provides, a physical defense first kind of mindset, able to meet guys at the blue line and use his body and his stick to kind of break up plays. And I think Charlie Alec does that really well, or seems to fit that bill really well. By all accounts, he's a very strong rush defender. He's a strong skater. So his physicality and potential brutality isn't kind of well, I can't let this guy get past me because I can't catch him kind of thing. It's more of just like it's much more fun for me to hurt him here, but like I still have the ability to keep up with rushing forwards and things like that.
Yeah.
Charlie Alec, according to the draft combine, he did really well in some of the O2 tests as far as like endurance and things like that. I, however, am going to go with the player that I like in this position, who was also a standout of the draft and who has a comparable for a player that I personally have been in love with for 4 or 5 years now, which is Brandon Carlo. I have said multiple times, I don't know how publicly or whatever, but I've said it to people when I've been talking about it. I think for a few years, the Boston Bruins had the perfect second pair defense in Matt Grzelcyk and Brandon Carlo, because you had a big physical shutdown defender, you had a smaller, more attacking skill-based defenseman that allowed you to have that kind of balance on the ice. And so I am taking EJ Emery, who absolutely went off at the combine. His just raw athleticism is incredible. He's a really, really good skater. He is a very physical player. He's a really good rush defender. He provides a dynamic. Again, he's 6'3", he's 185 pounds, he's a right shot. He's a local kid. He's apparently from Compton, which I didn't know. I knew he was American. I didn't realize he was from Compton, which, again, just how do you not love having local kids on the team? What are we doing here? And I think, seeing, again, players like Braden Schneider, but also Keandre Miller, who had great athleticism at the combine, and like, we can have a different conversation at another time about why this might be a very interesting draft for whoever does take EJ Emery, specifically because of the comparisons to Keandre Miller. But that kind of skating and that kind of athletic ability and his ability to read the play and disrupt play before it even gets into the defensive zone, I don't know how you're not tripping over yourself to add that, because I think he walks in with a higher floor than anybody on the right side, other than maybe Leno. But I think he's going to be – he projects to be a better defender than Leno is, which makes him incredibly valuable. So EJ Emery is my pick for that Oilers pick. So we have so far both taken a left-handed forward and a right-handed defenseman.
Yeah, taking a goal scorer and a shutdown right-handed D. So we're in the same mindset. I said this to you earlier, so I know who you're taking at this spot, and I figured it would be EJ Emery because you hyped him up a few days ago in our chat about how much you like this kid. And
I love everything about his game, and the elite prospects thing. Draft Guide has a bunch of like game notes that you can read of the scouts for them who watch the games. They write notes and blurbs and stuff like that, and everything you read is just like, yeah, man, he's just really smart and really reliable, and he's just really good at playing defense. Like, he didn't score a single goal in 61-27-7, so that is 88. He didn't score a single goal in 95 games this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I could not care fucking less.
Well, the thing I'd say about that is very similar to Charlie Alec in terms of the way they play. Very good skaters, shutdown defensemen, play physical. They have a little bit of an edge to them. They like to throw the body around and play that physical game. I think that their environments and the situations they play in can explain, when I talked about Charlie Alec and his willingness to try and make the pass, even though it doesn't always come off. He has an ability and awareness to try and make the high value play more often than not. I think with EJ Emery, I don't think it's for a lack of that ability. It's just put in a position on a team with some highly skilled offensive defensemen. Like, hey, he's playing with some elite offensive defensemen in the NTDP, and he's just not asked to do that, right? Like, it's just no, listen, I'm not gonna say he's an exceptional puck handler and playmaker, and he just wasn't asked to do that, and it's just hidden in his game. I just don't think it's as bad as maybe it's put out to be, because he's asked to play a certain role in that system, and he does it very well. Right, he's the main penalty killer for them. He's kind of like the safety net, the main shutdown presence for that team to shut down the opposition. For a team that is going to play end-to-end high skill, high speed hockey, right? Like it's full offense all the time. He's kind of the one guy back there just doing the opposite of that, right? So there's just not going to be a lot of opportunity for him to make that play, and I'm sure there's a lot of conversations being had saying, like, listen, we need you to do this because you're so good at doing this. Whereas if you maybe swap these guys in different situations, it's fairly similar. We're talking about EJ Emery with a little bit more, in a different system where he has the flexibility and freedom to do a little bit more. Than maybe he's looking to make more than just that easy first pass, where he has the ability to try and make the high value play every now and then. So I do really like that pick. I think if I hadn't picked Charlie A, like, EJ Emery would be kind of very close second, just because they both bring the two main things I'm looking for the Ducks blue line right now, or I guess three things. One, a right-handed shot. Two, they can skate. And three, they're physical and they're shutdown defenders. And these guys bring all three of those to that. And EJ Emery, I think, is just as good as Charlie A. Like, he's just playing in a system where he's asked to do this, which honestly would be very similar to what he'd be asked to do for the Ducks, right? Is
Yep.
to be the main penalty killer, the safety net, the shutdown defenseman, the main go-to guy for that in this team. So I like it a lot, man. I do. I think if either of these guys are there, I think one of them will definitely be gone by this pick. But if you can get one of these guys there, I think it really rounds out the prospect pool for the defense for the Ducks.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. All right, man. What you got with your first pick for the 35th pick, which is the Ducks' second round pick?
Yeah, I'm gonna start it with a guy that I would love to take here, and I've seen some people have him ranked in this range, but again, he's a guy I think is going to go a little bit higher than that. It's Liam Greentree out of Windsor.
Oh.
Yeah, I really, again, he's not the best skater, but very good with the puck on his stick, one of the better shots in the draft. I would really love for him to somehow be there at 35. I get another power forward, kind of fits the mold of what the Ducks are looking for. But the only question mark for him is skating, which I think when you've brought in a guy like Caden Lindstrom, and you've got some of the skaters the Ducks have in their system, to bring a guy in that has the ability that he has, the puck on his stick, and then everything else kind of checks the box for everything else other than skating, I think he'd be a great one. Honestly, like, you look at Elite Prospects, has him ranked 15. I think Pronman has him ranked 23. A few outlets have him ranked in that 30 to 40 range just because of the skating question mark, but there's going to be a team who doesn't care about that, right? Where everything else is checked and it's just the skating, and they feel like they'll be able to put him in a situation to succeed. I think he is a guy, unfortunately, who's gone. But my other pick would be looking more at the utility side of things. Bringing
Wait. You don't get to do your second pick until I make my first pick.
No. What I'm saying is I'm not picking Liam Greentree because I don't think he's going to be available there. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Sorry. I went well too in on talking about him. But
no, I dig it. I'm here for it. Misdirection.
I would love to take him. But I don't think he's going to be available, unfortunately, at that spot. So I'm looking in the same league though for this, and I'm going to the Guelph Storm, and I'm looking at Jet Lichenko.
Heartbreaking. Okay.
Yeah, that's the guy I'm looking at
Is that your pick?
That is my pick. Yes,
All
Chetlichenko is
right.
one of my pick. Again, looking at one of the better skaters in the draft, a guy who high-end compete, fits the mold of what Pat Verbeek wants to bring in this system. The shot really isn't there, but again, we've addressed that need earlier with Caden Lindstrom. Everything else is there. Bit smaller at 5'11", but not too small. But he just looks like he's going to be a workhorse, right? A guy you can plug in anywhere. You can maybe plug in at third line center. You can plug in second line wing, and he's just kind of going to do everything. He's going to be a buzzsaw out there. Again, like I said, he's not maybe the best playmaker. He's not the best shooter, but the Ducks are looking at, I guess now they have a lot of those boxes checked. And to bring in a guy like this who can kind of do everything, I love it. And Elite Prospects has him as the third best straight line skater, fifth best motor, fifth best two-way forward. It's just speed, effort, physicality. He just has kind of all the makings of a really good middle six player you just kind of love to have on your team. And he's one of the younger players in the draft. He's just 17, so that has something to it where maybe that offensive ability comes out over the next couple seasons. So yeah, I really like him a lot to have in this pick, where it's a little bit of swing, right? You kind of know what you're getting on a base level, and then there's a bit of a swing because if the offense comes, if the playmaking ability and everything develops a little bit more, it's not like it's not there. He had 74 points in 68 games, but if this guy can blossom into a 100-point player next year, and a lot of the tools come in, he's got kind of the base level and compete level in skating that he could really be something special to get at that 35 pick.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think this pick, because he was someone that was on my list that I liked. Pronman has him really high, too. Pronman has him as 19. Wheeler has him at 32. EP has him at 34. I like him because he's a guy that you could see developing into kind of like an Alex Killorn type guy, where you're like, if he's on your third line, you're happy. If somebody gets hurt and he's filling in higher up the line out, you're not worried. I think he is a guy who you kind of in your head are like, oh, he could be a little bit of the offensive, theoretically, right? He has the ability to add some offense to the third line along with Nathan Gaucher. And you just now have two guys out there that are going to play hard. They're going to play physical. They're going to play smart. They're going to be on the other team's ass for, 14, 15 minutes a night. And you can really kind of free up a little bit more up the lineup. But again, like you said, there is some offense there. So in theory, he could even turn into more of that and maybe even be like a second-line winger or something along those lines. I like that pick. I think that's a great pick. I think especially given the swing you took earlier with Lindstrom, that's a player that makes a lot of sense. I am going to close my eyes and swing as hard as I can. And I am taking a player that I think has the boom potential of Anton Silyev with significantly higher bust potential, because there's no way to know if the incredible production that they had is translatable and or repeatable, because they are from our guys from the high school circuit. I am going to take the 6'7", 209-pound right shot center, Dean Letourneau.
He was one I was looking at too. I like him.
He's just massive. And he's apparently got really good puck handling. He uses his reach really well. He uses his body well. He's not overly physical, but he uses his body well as far as putting guys on his backs, boxing guys out, and protecting the puck. He is obviously, at 6'7", 210 pounds, more than capable of running guys over. I believe I saw a note from one of the scouts in the EP ringside that was like, I would really love it if he did just start running more guys over and imposing his will physically on other teams, But when you're so big, you can do whatever you want on the ice. You don't necessarily have to do that. So I imagine that's something that certainly gets developed. I don't think he is a player that you would expect to be in the lineup for a couple of years. He's probably a guy you let sit in the AHL, and then when he comes up, hopefully you have something there.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that the potential of what he could be, a right shot, playmaking, goal scoring, physical specimen forward, is just a perfect swing for the Ducks to take.
Yeah. It's honestly, I like the swings on the high school kids every now and then because sometimes they really pan out. You remember Buffalo taking Casey Middlestat, didn't pan out in the beginning, and now obviously they moved on from him, but he's become a legitimate NHL center. Right now he's playing for Colorado, and the Ducks took their own swing in the high school circuit, taking Jackson Lacombe, and that's panned out because now he's playing for the Ducks at the NHL level and looks like a really good defenseman for them and for the future. And there's nothing wrong with taking a swing on a guy, like you said, who's 6'7", 209 at 17.5, and absolutely. Did you see the numbers he put up for the high school circuit last year?
Dude, he had 61 goals in 47 games.
Yeah.
Did you see the picture of him from the combine?
No, I didn't.
Dude, he's fucking massive. Again, my buddy Scott was there for Eyes on the Prize, and he was like, dude, his legs are like tree trunks. He's just physically a monster.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but I am not 100% convinced that Tage Thompson is worth his $7 million contract, but I really want him to be. And if this guy has even a chance to turn into a similar type of player with that same level of size and skill, you take the swing every day. I don't know what we're doing. You know what I mean? I just the raw physical profile mixed with, above average skating for his size and above average puck handling for his size. And even apparently in tight, even regardless of size. He's just very good at handling the puck, using his wingspan and manipulating the defense. Yeah, man, I don't know what more you want in the 35th overall pick than, we might potentially get a dude who could score 70, 80 points.
Yeah. I love Prodman's look at it, and it's the look you get with a lot of, the assumption you get with a lot of high school kids. It's he could be Tage Thompson, but he could be Joe Coburn, right? You don't know what you're going to get with this kid. But, I mean, listen, for where the Ducks have and what they have in their prospect pool, it's not the worst swing to take, right? There's a really good chance that things could pan out for this kid, and it wasn't just weak competition, that he is just that dominant, right? So there's a lot of upside to that. There's a lot of risk to it as well, but when you have the pieces in your system already to take somebody like that, that's the thing we said with Silio too, to take a unicorn type player and hope they pan out. It's the same argument we made there, so I like seeing it pop up again later here.
Yeah, 100%, man. I'm with it. All right, sir, back to you for your second pick for the 35th overall draft pick.
Yeah, another guy, I don't know if he's going to be available here because, again, a few of the outlets that I've looked at more often than not, he is a guy that's going in kind of that mid-20 to early 30 range. Some of them have a lot higher, but I'm going to put him in this conversation just because, again, the skating, I could see him fall. The skating's kind of thing. He's the same as Liam Greentree in the sense, and I passed on Greentree, so I don't think I'm going to pass on this guy. But Elite Prospects has him ranked at 21. Prodman has him ranked at 27. I think the Hockey News has him ranked at 19. So there's a lot of people who are fans of this kid. But there's always guys who fall, and a lot of the main reasons guys fall on draft day are their skating, right? So I've got this guy in here in my category, and I'm gonna mess up the last name, but it's Sasha Boisvert, I think is how it's pronounced.
Sasha, what? What number by
the Elite Prospects? He's 21.
That's okay, because I'm gonna take a player only a couple picks out. Oh boy, Boisvert.
Yeah, something like that.
Boisvert.
Elite Prospects, 5th-ranked power forward, so you can see kind of the areas I'm going for here. But again, I'm addressing the needs here for the Ducks, and I'm hoping this is the direction they go. You go and you get a power forward who can kind of do everything, and Caden Lindstrom with the high pick. You get Charlie Elick, who's a shutdown right-handed defenseman who can skate, so that addresses a need there. You kind of go outside of that with Jet Luchenko, where you just kind of get a well-rounded guy who can kind of do everything. And then I fall back into needing a goal scorer here. And still a guy who can do a lot of everything else. Just skating's the real question mark with Sacha Boisvert here. But again, a shoot-first player, a goal scorer at the heart of everything. Good deceptive wrist shot, powerful one-timer. He's threat from distance. He's got good puck handling and skill to score from in tight. So he's just a player I like a lot. It's a project, maybe not as much for a prospect as Dean Letourneau, but a project nonetheless of a guy who's going to take some time to get there. But I do think he kind of has a well-rounded enough game. He's big. He's 6'2", 179 pounds. He's young enough that you can kind of take the swing on him. He's going to probably take the long route. He's in the USHL now. He'll probably go to college and take a few years to get to the NHL level. But if everything does pan out for him, he looks like a really efficient middle six player who can either, again, play at center or play on the wing, depending on where you need him to play at that point. And the big thing for me is a pure goal scorer, adding to Cutter Gauthier, adding to Caden Lindstrom. I really like everything that he brings. And man, if he's a guy who's available there at 35, I think he'll be one of the best players available at that spot.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I like the pick. I like it a lot. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do because there's a player who I can talk myself into falling and being available, but I don't think they're going to. But I'll say this. Boy, if they could get Teddy Stiga, I would be a big fan of that.
Yeah, he was one I was looking at.
Again, he's just another one of those players that I think you could just see being anywhere in the top 9, playing with good players and making them better.
He reminds me a lot of Luchenko and what he does.
Yeah, for sure.
He's just the thing that's going to hurt him is his size because he's, I think, 5'9". So.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why, I think he could, in theory, be available in that 35 range. But I am going to go for the top 6 goal scoring kind of upside here, and I am going to take Emil Hemming. Who is a Finnish player who was not the most productive player in the TPS. 7 goals in 40 games, not great. In the U20s, he had 11 goals in 13 games, far better. But he's just kind of similar to that. He's 6'2", he's 194 pounds, so he has the build of a power forward. He'll be able to hold up physically, be able to get in on a forecheck, create a little bit of havoc. But he's a player with goal scoring upside, and I think he is a good enough skater at his size that goal scoring upside is meaningful. It's going to sound silly, but I think we've seen somewhat in this Stanley Cup final. If you look at Evan Rodriguez, Evan Rodriguez has a good shot. He's got goal scoring upside, right? That's kind of what he's in the lineup to do. But he's certainly not someone that you're he has to be in our top 6. What matters is that when you have plays when they break down, where he finds himself alone in front of the goalie, he can put it into a corner. He can beat a goalie one-on-one and make a great play. He can read the play well. And I think Emil Hemming, in a sense, can kind of be able to do that. He's a really smart two-way player, which I think will help endear him to this coaching staff and this front office. I think it's similar to Carey Terrence, maybe without necessarily the junior production, because I think Terrence was a bit more productive. But I think having using that pick on a right winger who, again, has some goal scoring upside and is going to be able to do a lot of different things for you over the course of an 82 game season, I think has a lot of value. And I think as this team has talked about prioritizing adding top 6 right shot forwards and top 4 right shot defensemen, I think he's a player that could be the solution to that problem in 5 years.
No, I like it. This is where it gets interesting here. We go to
Pick
58
58.
here. Now, I am going to for my first one, just for the swing of things, I'm going to take who I would love the Ducks to take here as a high upside swing. Not one. I don't think they draft him. He's my player I would love for them to take here. I mentioned him to you a couple days ago as a guy that at one point was considered one of the top players in this draft a couple years ago, and now has fallen to being projected likely as a second to maybe third round pick in some cases, and that is Finnish defenseman Aaron Kiviharju is my pick here.
You're taking Aaron Kiviharju?
Yep.
Oh. Okay, so explain to the people who Evan Kiviharju is.
Yeah, I mean, as of 2 years ago, he was a guy that was at, I remember reading 2 drafts ago, looking ahead to the next couple of drafts, he was at the top of the list of potential prospects. He's been well scouted, well known as one of the top players to come out of Finland, one of the top young defensemen to come out of Finland in a very long time. As elite prospect, puts it, once hailed as a child prodigy and a potential first overall pick. He's generated a buzz for a very long time, and honestly just kind of fallen off the radar. Production really hasn't been there. International production hasn't been there. His size has kind of limited him a bit. He was 5'8", 5'9" for a while. I think they finally have him listed at 5'10",
which is a lie.
Yeah, which I don't think it's 5'10", but it might help him in his favor there. But he's got everything on the offensive side of things. One of the better skaters in the draft. Hockey sense, compete level is there. Shooting, maybe not so much, and puck handling, but he's just a very smart defenseman. And there's a lot of things that he has to work on in terms of skating and size and kind of dynamic offensive ability really isn't there right now, and that's kind of why his stock has dropped there. But I always like taking a swing on a guy who at one point people thought was going to be a first overall pick. I mean, it's the Brad Lambert story in a sense, right? Why we wanted the Ducks to take Brad Lambert either in late first or early second. Was it been last year's draft or 2 drafts ago?
2 drafts ago.
For Brad Lambert, 2 drafts ago. It's a very similar situation there. At one point, there's a reason why this kid, people thought it was going to be a first overall pick, and if you can take him at 58.
No, last year's draft. 2 years ago was Atu Ratti.
Yeah. You could even make the same argument for him and why Carolina took him. Like, when you are this late in and the Ducks have had, at this point, 3 picks in front of them, you can kind of take a swing here, and I'm all for that. And if he's there at that point, I know the Ducks have a lot of left-handed defensemen, but I like the potential to just say, listen, we think at one point there's a reason this kid was hailed as a potential number 1 overall pick, and let's take the swing and see if any of that is still there, and there's a reason that he was listed as that. So I don't think it's what they do, because I think they've got a lot of depth on that left side of defense, a lot of similar players, but he's one that I would love to see them just take the swing if he's there.
Yeah, man, he was someone on my list. So one of the things that, like, to your point about him being, like, as EP says, a potential child prodigy, like, EP also notes that, like, he's been playing with grown men, or let me say it this way, he's been playing up in age groups for so long. They have scouting reports on him going back 5 years. He's 17, and he has been playing at a high enough level that they have scouting reports on him from when he was like 12, 13. That's unreal. And I think the bet you're making if you take him is that he didn't grow into maybe the size you would hope he would have. He suffered some injuries, but his brain is still there. He's still a very smart player. What does he get from that? How is he going to be able to translate, his game at that size? Um, there are going to be a lot of questions about that, but I think you are 100% right. Taking a swing like that on a player who just has the brain that Kivi Harju is reported to have is never a bad shot. Betting on smart players is always a good idea, especially with found money picks. This is the Boston pick, by the way. This is the final pick from the Hampus Lindholm trade. Similar to betting on upside, I am going to take a player that I think is going to be a very interesting test case for who learned what over the last 2 years. Justin Poirier is a 5'8" right shot scoring winger who plays much bigger than he is. He engages physically with teams or he engages physically with defensemen on the forecheck. He engages physically around the net in order to get to pucks and things like that. Elite Prospects has him as the 4th best shot in the draft. Again, he's 5'8". So when teams look at Logan Stankoven, what do they see? When teams look at Cole Caulfield, what do they see? When teams look at Alex DeBrincat, what do they see? This is going to be the interesting question. As a team that, again, needs elite goal scoring, needs right-hand forwards, I don't think there is a better swing to take, similar to what you're saying with Kivi Harju, than Justin Poirier. I think the opportunity to draft a high-end shooter late in the second round is too good of a chance. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Is too good of a chance to pass up. So I am going to take Justin Poirier from the QMJHL, who put up 51 goals in 68 games.
I love it.
He's a monster, bro.
I'm staying in Finland with my my next pick, and it's very on theme with a lot of my other picks, but a guy who could potentially not be available at 58. But I think there's some question marks about his game, and again, skating is the one thing it kind of comes down to, and being a D+1 player. A lot of times they'll slide, so you see in the rankings a few times where Elite Prospects and the athletic writers and any prospect writers will have D+1 players ranked a lot higher, because I don't think they put as much flack on them being a draft +1 player, but rarely do we see these guys go significantly higher, and they usually fall because of that. But I think that benefits to the Ducks here, that he could be available at 58, and that's Jesse Pulkkinen. 6'6", 216-pound left shot defenseman from Finland. He's made some massive steps in his development over the last couple of years, which I love to see. It's who's the Russian forward or the Belarusian forward we took? Sidorov?
Sidorov, yeah.
Sidorov, yeah. Very shades of that, of a guy who's made massive steps in his D+1 season, and it's worth a swing at that kind of 3rd to 4th round range. So I like this pick a lot, of just being, again, a high compete player, very toolsy player, skates. He's not a great skater, but skates well for being 6'6", right? He's not Silyev, where he's one of the best skaters in the draft, and he's a unicorn because of that. But he skates well for being a 6'6" player. Defensively, he's a stud. He's well-rounded. He does everything right, but he's not a detriment offensively, right? Like, I mean, surprisingly enough, Elite Prospects has him ranked as the 5th best offensive defenseman. I don't know if I agree with that, but he's a decent shooter, decent with the puck on his stick. He's a smart player still, a good passing, more than you would normally see with a player of his size. At 6'6", he's got a little bit more to his game that he can do that. And he just provides, again, a different profile to what the Ducks have on the left side of defense right now, where you can see him as a very valuable third pairing defenseman behind a Minchikov and a Zellweger of a different profile to throw out there, but he's not just out there because he's big, right? He can do other things with the puck, and he's not out there just to be a physical presence and just go out there and basically murder people. There's a little bit more to his game, which I like, and he could fit in the system that the Ducks are looking to build. So I love it. He'd be a guy I would love to pick there. I think, again, Kiviari is the bit more of a swing. Pokinen might be a bit of a safer pick there, and a guy who fits more with the system. But I do like kind of the approach of bringing in another defenseman on the left side of defense just to kind of help round out a few of our players who are graduating out of that in Zellweger and Minchkov.
I like it. That's an interesting pick. I am going to go to the QMJHL, and I'm going to draft another player with a good shot and a fondness for hitting. I am going to take Maxim Massé, the right wing out of Chicoutimi, which is a real place allegedly. I think the thing I like about Maxim Massé is just kind of he does all the things you need good teams to do, and he's got a shot to go with it. I don't think he's going to be winning any Selke awards, but he is going to get in on the forecheck. He's going to disrupt plays. He's going to be active. His player comp is Brandon Saad, and I think we've seen over the course of Brandon Saad's career that he's just a skilled but not elite, smart player who does the things that the rest of the line needs in order to generate opportunities. And I think having a player like that in your roster is never a bad idea. I think if you are looking at a player who has a potentially elite shot and you can, again, get them late in the second round, I think that's found money. I don't know that you could ask for really all that much more than that. And I think drafting a player like Max Massé, and again, adding to that right side organizational depth, adding more pieces, because again, it feels like all the centers the Ducks are looking at are all left-handed, and they're going to be forever. Nobody's going to change their handedness in the middle of their career or in the middle of a season or any shit like that. So adding more potentially productive right shot forwards who do the little things to help generate opportunities, I think has a lot of value, and that is why I am going to take Maxim Massé.
No, I like it. I like it a lot.
Okay, so real quick, I just want to say, pick 35 and pick 58, the two picks the last two, our four players, 2 picks, were each worth 10 points. We are now moving into the third round where picks are worth 15 points. Eddy, with the 66th pick, a pick that the Ducks got from the San Jose Sharks for Henry Thrun, a pick that is better than the pick that they used on Henry Thrun. Who are you looking at, brother?
It gets rocky in these areas. There's a bunch of different ways that you could go. I don't just like this guy because of his name, and it being just one of the most NPC names in the entire draft.
Oh God, are you taking it? Are you taking it?
I might.
I hope so.
I like his. He's one of the better skaters. That's going to be available at this range. He's got a decent shot. So again, addressing the need of kind of a bit more of a shoot first approach. Very unrefined. A lot of work that's going to have to go into him. He's definitely a project player, but he showed some signs of being something a little bit more than what you would normally get at this range. And I'm going for
Do it.
USHL Waterloo Blackhawks forward John Mustard.
Oh, wow! Not who I thought you were gonna take.
Yeah, he's just got
Ah.
he's got a game that translates well. He's got a strong north-south game. Doesn't make a ton of plays, but he competes well. He's fast. He's got a really high speed shoot first type game, which I think could translate well for the Ducks.
Mhm.
In terms of, we don't have too many players who are like that. Very just one track mind of let's get the puck up the ice and get the shot on net. Right. So there's not a lot more to it, at least right now, than that. There's like I said, a lot of work that's going to have to go in to really refine the rest of his game. But again, you can't teach speed, and you can't teach the knack for being a goal scorer and having that shoot first mentality. So I do think it's just a nice little bit of a swing. I think, when all is said and done, if he becomes a middle six forward and a guy that maybe you should have drafted in, say, the second round, and you get him at 68, I think it's a nice pickup for the Ducks. Or sorry, 66. I think it's a nice pickup for the Ducks.
I agree. So I am going to go ahead and also take a player that I think has a remarkable NPC name. And I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to take the...
Is this the guy you thought I was going to
Yeah, the USHL
Okay.
captain, Brody Zemer.
Nice.
5'11", 192-pound, right shot, right winger. 25 goals, 38 points for the U18 and TDP team. He had 8 goals for the USHL in 27 games. At the U18s, he had 3 goals and 9 assists in 7 games. His skating is a little awkward. It's something that he's going to have to work on. But this is the same team that drafted Sasha Pastujov, and I think Brody Zemer has the rest of the skill set, or has the rest of the package in a way that I don't think Sasha Pastujov did. Sasha Pastujov was drafted for his playmaking skill. Brody Zemer would be drafted far more for his ability to play 200-foot game, to be an effective forward in his own end and in the offensive end. He's not the tallest player, but again, at 5'11" and 192 pounds, I don't think you're worried about him getting bullied. He's got a really good shot, and it's the potential here to add a middle six scoring winger who adds some feistiness to the team. I think we can all agree that USA team is a very good team with a lot of skill on it, and the fact that a player that could slip to the end of the second round was named the captain, I just like what that says about this player. I like what it says about his work ethic. I like what it says about his compete level, his competitiveness. He's an interesting player because Wheeler has him at 61 and Pronman has him at 95. EP has him at 57. This is hoping a little bit of a fall. You could argue if any type of player is going to maybe go earlier, it would be this type of player where, again, those intangibles are so attractive.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the player that I like because, again, I want to add to that right side organizational depth.
Oh, I like it.
So I am going with Brody Zemer.
I'm re-racking my list here.
I know.
This is where it gets a little bit tricky. So
I'm going to pick 66.
So just a lot of Russians I'm trying to avoid here. So. All right, I think I got a pick here for this is 68, right?
66 still.
Oh, we still on 66?
We are still on
Okay.
66. Your first
Okay,
66 pick was John Mustard.
Okay. Okay. So this is kind of in the same realm as the Dean Letourneau pick a bit. I'm going for a big, rangy center, but some question marks about their game. But I'm going for Edmonton Oil Kings center winger. He played both this year. Adam Dzeko.
Ooh.
6'5", 201 pounds, right shot from the nation of Czechia. Just an interesting player. He's got some history to him of being a guy at one point who people thought was going to be a first round talent, and it just kind of hasn't panned out over the last couple of years. It just hasn't developed the way I think people thought they would. But again, at his size, there aren't too many players who skate or shoot or handle the puck like he does. So it's just one of those swings that you take that everything else could pan out, and when he gets to the NHL level, that size comes to his advantage, and maybe the rest of his game can round out a little bit. So
Say the name one more time for me.
Adam Jecko, Jeccho.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Oh, that's fine. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't know. He's just he's a guy that it's gonna, again, a little more of a project, but you've got some things you can pull from there. That at one point he was highly touted. He's gonna frustrate you a bit, but I think he's got the tools there that you put him in the right situation, you give him enough time. If you let him finish out his full 4 seasons at least in the WHL, marinate a little bit, 1 or 2 seasons in the AHL, he just brings a little bit different profile to what the Ducks have in their forward group. So I don't know. I like these swings with these later picks to just see what you got there, and he's got an above average shot again going on the shooting side of things and bringing in shooters to this team. He's a guy I'd like to see them bring in.
I dig it. I mean, again, adding that kind of size to the forward group is never a bad idea. If you're going to swing on skill that has subtitles to it. He could play center, he could play right wing. His shades of, according to EP Rinkside, are Anthony Mantha and Pierre Engvall, which is a fascinating choice. I am going to go again and do something where there is an argument to be made that this player will not be there, but I don't care. I am going to go back to the high school circuit. I am going to say that the high school circuit will be largely underappreciated by the majority of loser Canadians, and that they don't appreciate good American high school hockey. And I'm going to take Javon Moore out of the Sioux Falls Stampede, or the TDS Transportation Team. I don't know what the hell that is, but he played for Minnetonka. Kid's from Minnesota. He's 6'3". He's a left-handed winger, and he is a playmaker. So again, as much as we know that this team needs to add size, as much as we know this team needs to add scoring, as much as we know that this team needs to build up the right side. And with a lot of the center prospects being left-handed, there are plenty of people who can shift to the left. I am taking a bet on possibly elite playmaking and good size, and saying that this player can become a meaningful third liner, possibly even just overall middle six player, and use that skill in order to create opportunities for his teammates, his line mates, and use that size to be aggressive on the forecheck. Shades of has him as a Jacob Voracek type. Jacob Voracek would be a great player to add to this kind of group as far as build. And again, he's young and he's big. He's got a chance to keep growing. He's got a chance to keep filling out. And really use that size to amplify his vision and his passing skills. So that is my pick. And now we are on to pick 68.
This is a tough one. This is tough territory. Trying to take the swing for points here. These are the big point ones. 15 points.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. I think I gotta finally kind of we've go the Russian route. I know we don't typically go that way, but
you gonna go Shurin?
I am going Shurin, actually.
Yeah.
Yes. Igor Shurin from I'm not even gonna try and pronounce the team that he plays for.
Lokomotiv Yaroslav.
Yeah, good call. But high compete player. Just a guy who kind of does everything well, and then has a high end compete. I think if Pat Verbeek is going to draft a player from Russia, I think this is kind of the mold that he'd go for, and this is kind of the range that he would take a player. Very physical player, has great tempo, played mostly on the ring, but again, he can play center, so center wing. I've got a theme going with a lot of my picks for this, but I just like his game. I like how it projects at this pick. For a guy you're going to have to wait on for a little bit. He's not going to light up the score sheet, but a highly projectable game to the NHL level. And again, he played 3 KHL games, but he was given an opportunity to play in the KHL as a 17-year-old, and that always means something because they rarely give anybody a chance at that young to play any games at all at the KHL level. So I'm sure they weren't meaningful minutes, but listen, it does speak volumes to some of the trust that they did have in this kid to give him a few chances at playing in the top league in Russia this season. So at this spot,
Micro stats are fucking gross.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Again, 95 offense, 100 a rank of 100 in transition, 88 in defense. He's just kind of a guy who pops up everywhere and does everything, right? So
Yeah.
if you Priman has him ranked at 31, and I think that's what the trend you see with a lot of these Russian players is some people fall in love with these guys and have them ranked a lot higher, and then there are some outlets like Elite Prospects has him ranked 63rd, and then there's others I've seen him ranked in that kind of 80 to 100 range. It really just depends where you again how translatable you think their skill set is coming over from playing in the MHL. It's the argument for Demidov as well, and having a lot of MHL action and how well that translates to the NHL level because they don't have any KHL action or a really limited amount of KHL action this season. So I love that Elite Prospects has the little tag that he's got that dog in him too. So
yeah,
I like that as a moniker for him. So he'd be a fun one to take, one that you can see is easily translatable from coming over to Russia and playing in the NHL.
I like it. I like the pick a lot. I think it's a good one. So this is an interesting part for me. I am not sure what to do. So I think what I will do in that case. What just happened? That's not good. Everything got all funky. That's definitely not good. Sorry, my PDF reader's being a little weird. And now I only have, according to the drop-down side thing, I only have one fucking... Oh, all right, we're fine. It's okay. Nobody worry. I'm good. It's going to be fine. Crisis averted. I know you were all so scary. Here's what we're going to do. I think it is important to acknowledge that the game is getting faster, that having speed, attacking speed, can be absolutely crucial to your team's ability to be successful. Even if it is in a bottom 6 role, having players who can be aggressive on the forecheck, who have the speed and skating to really cause defensemen problems when they're trying to transition the puck out of their own end, is valuable. I'm going to go ahead and take Jack Pridham and add a speedy right winger with size, 6'2", 174. So he's a skinnier kid, but he's got good size, good height on him. Fill in, add a little bit of weight as he gets older. He's almost 18, so he's a little bit on the older side. But I think that this is a kid with a profile who his speed can become more effective as he moves up and the players around him get better and are able to exploit his speed with faster thinking and processing and reaction times. I really just think that this is a guy who you can see just fitting in, either being a really high-end AHL player or a really useful NHL player. His comp is Kasperi Kapanen, and while I can see ways in which that would be concerning, I also think, again, that adding some speed to this team is going to be crucial. Again, speaking of things that we've talked about, Pat Verbeek saying, he said it, we want to add more speed to the bottom six. Well, drafting players like this with that kind of foot speed who likely top out as a low-level second-line player, realistically a solid third-liner, is kind of what you're looking for when they hit. I think it has a lot of value. It adds some dynamism to this team. This team is much more at the top of the lineup, especially at this point. It's not that it's slow, but it's much more kind of thoughtful, I guess, in the way that it plays. They're not really a rush team as far as their actual skill sets. They're more of a team who, because of a lack of experience, a lack of ability, a lack of whatever, they're creating off of the rush. I think this is the type of player that you add to provide a dynamic that this roster and this prospect pool doesn't really have. So I am taking Jack Pridham. Sorry, I am over talking.
No, I like it. I like it a lot. He's not a guy I had on my radar at all this year, so it's nice to hear a little bit about him. There's a bunch of these guys in this range where I'm sure I would love them, but just to go through all of them, like there's so many guys in this range, it's unreal. Like the amount of from 30 to 60 and beyond, the
Right.
kind of the mix-up guys could go. Again, the guy I'm going to take here as an example is ranked 91st by Elite Prospects and ranked 34th by Corey Prodman. So just the range of where these guys are ranked is, it's like but it's just ridiculous at this point in the draft. But the one thing I'd like to say about this guy is in his league, highest score in his league, higher score than one guy I've already taken in Sacha Boisvert. Guys who are likely going to go before him in the draft, in Michael Hage and Trevor Connolly, were second and fourth in scoring in this league. And for some reason, the guy who's being overlooked a little bit, I think, more than he should, and that is Matvei Gridin from, I think, Muskogin in the USHL.
Yeah.
I think, and from what I've read, and again, it's a little bit all over the place, but his shot is high end. It's excellent. He's one of the better shooters in the draft, one of the better shooters in the USHL this year, and I think for a guy who produced as much as he has to be in this range and available in this range, is a guy I think you have to swing on. Now, he's kind of average everywhere else, whether it be skating and puck skills, hockey sense, compete level, but when you can get a guy who can shoot and create like Matvei Gridin can, I think if you can get him at this range, in that third to fourth round range, again, just a guy you want to take a swing on. And for the Ducks needing goal scorers and shoot first players, he's a guy I would love to see them take a swing on. And listen, I mean, when you're the top scorer in your league, you should be probably drafted in the range that, that kind of late first, early second round range that guys like Michael Hage and Trevor Connolly are being projected in. And for him to not get in that mix, if he's available for the Ducks at 79, 68, then I'm definitely in to take him there.
Yeah, Wheeler's got him at 38. Wheeler and Prodman are higher on him than EP is. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good pick. I like it. You're just adding a shot is always a good idea.
Yeah, I've added a lot of shots here. So.
I don't see how that's bad. Let me find my guy real quick. Okay. I am going to draft a player that does the thing that I hate when people do more than anything. He is a left/right winger, but he is a left winger with a right shot. I hate that so much because the fact is there are not a lot of right shots in hockey. Why would you play on the left? It doesn't matter. I get it. It's fine. Anyways, we're going to go to the USHL, and out of the Dubuque Fighting Saints, I'm going to take another player with good vision, a knack for finishing around the net, and some really questionable skating. This is a player who is not ranked by Prodman or by Wheeler, but is ranked 77th by Elite Prospect, and that is Noah Powell, 6'1", 210 pounds, right shot, almost 19. It is his D+1 year, so there's a little bit of risk there. But I do think if they can help improve his skating, there is a lot here to like about someone who could possibly be closer to NHL ready than maybe you would think, simply just because of his size. 6'1" and 210 at 18 is not nothing. That's a large player. His micro stats from the USHL this year are very, very strong. 97 overall, 96 offense, 85 transitions, 72 defense. This is a smart player. This is a player who can, like I said, he's good around the net. He's able to score a lot of goals, but his biggest knack is his passing, and he will be able to use that passing ability to create goals for himself and for others. Again, a right shot forward. This is the kind of stuff that we want. And as much as, again, we are looking for scoring and great shots, I do think elite hockey sense and elite playmaking are always something that is worth looking for and adding to the prospect pool. I don't think anybody ever screwed themselves out of anything pretty by being too good at making plays for other people. So that is who I'm taking, Noah Powell.
I always like getting at least one D+1 player who's shown significant improvement. Like there's two things that I personally like to look at and say why not for drafts, and it's the guys who've had some sort of D+1 season that for whatever reason they couldn't have in their draft year, and then it was just kind of late development and everything just started to click. You know, Jesse Pulkkinen for me and Noah Powell for you in this one. We talked about Sidorov as an example. The next thing kind of outlines where I'm going with this next pick, and that's looking at some of the youngest players in the draft. Yeah. One of my favorite picks, and I still think we're waiting on seeing if he's still a part of the Ducks or not, is Connor Vidson. Whether I think they passed the time it was to sign him, but it doesn't mean it's impossible for the Ducks to bring him back. But his production in his D+1 season and into this year has shown why it's great to take a swing on some of the younger players in the draft. Is that they've got kind of that whole year of development still to go on some of the players that are draft eligible this year, and it's just kind of a bit more of a raw project to work with. Still love that pick, still hope they sign him, but it's where I'm going with this one. On defense, from the Sarnia Sting, Lucas Fischer. So Fischer is, I believe, 7 days away from being eligible for next year's draft. Yeah, 7 days away from being eligible for the 2025 draft. Quick skater, physical. He's 6'4", 181 pounds right now, so very lanky. Played for one of the OHL's worst teams. Sarnia, I think, was the 3rd worst team in the OHL, and played like hefty minutes for Sarnia this year. So a lot of pressure to heap on a young kid, one of the younger players in the draft. But he played pretty well, right? It's a very, very raw game. He's a very good skater. He plays physical, so he does play to his size. Elite Prospects has him written in as shades of Brady Shea. Tracking data wasn't great, but again, he's playing for one of the league's worst teams and playing big minutes as, for most of the season, a 16-year-old. In the OHL. It's not an easy thing to do, and he's probably a kid still who is trying to work and play at his size as a rookie in the OHL. So I just think there's a lot to work with there. Very exciting kind of development project, and when you're looking at this point in the draft around kind of this 70 to 90 range, that's where I love to kind of take these swings on these projects, these guys that have the potential to really show some high upside beyond where they're drafted at. So you go for these raw prospects and see what you can get out of them. And again, he's one of the reasons why earlier I looked at a guy like Jesse Pulkkinen and providing something different on the left side of defense. If you're going to draft a left shot defenseman, get something a little bit different than what we already have in the prospect pool and bring in kind of a physical left shot defenseman who can skate really well, and that is what Lucas Fischer is. You're on mute.
Sorry. Fucking idiot. So there are just things like this that happen, but there's like just certain people you develop an affinity for, and you appreciate their perspective. And one of those people is Lauren Kelly, who is a scout for the OHL for Elite Prospects. And I was reading a couple of her blurbs about Fisher, and she was, just saying what you were saying, which is just that, like, the team is bad. It's hard to know how much to make out of him. He's got skill. His skating isn't great, but it's improving. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just very interesting to read, and to the point that by the end of the year, when they're grading and building the thing, they have his skating as a 6, which is a strength. So it's good. I think it's a really interesting pick. I think there's a lot there that you can certainly be excited about. And because, like you said, he's younger, the timeline's just different. Taking young guys is almost like taking Russians. You're just building in an extra 18 months of waiting. But it's not actually a bad thing because it staggers your prospect pool a little bit. I like the pick. I think it's an interesting one. I think there's a lot to like there. I am going to go back to taking a forward, and I am going to take a forward who has had a big rise in draft boards a little bit here, who has a chance to have a very good shot, 31 goals in 64 games for Niagara Ice Dogs. A fairly young player. He's 17.378. Again, the little badges on Elite Prospects are always great. They give you an example. Got that dog in him, motor, sniper. Yeah, man, I don't know what more you're going to ask for a kid than that. I'm going to take Kevin He. Again, similar, I think, in a lot of ways to Lucas Fisher, who you just took. The team's fucking dog shit. So how much of anything are we supposed to take out of how underwhelming his game may have been as far as success on a team level? I'm just going to read the first little blurb. It didn't matter how bad it got for the 17-win Niagara Ice Dogs. Kevin He played the same way. His feet never stopped moving. His effort never slipped. By season's end, he finishes the team's top goal scorer, biggest play driver, and arguably their best defensive forward. What are we doing here, man? Like, how is this kid ranked 83rd? Again here, his puck handling and passing seemed to be a little bit of issues. The team was really bad, but you're talking about a kid who's going to show up every game, show up every shift, compete really hard, and has a really good shot. Like, I don't know what more you want with your last third-round pick. So yeah, I'm taking Kevin He here.
No,
I like Kevin He a lot. I like the potential, and I like the profile. He's maybe a player that you do that thing that nobody does, and you make a phone call and say, you should really think about trading him to a team that doesn't suck shit and see how he does.
Ah, man, you just had to take Justin Poirier earlier, didn't you?
You know what's funny is I've been kind of basing my selection order off of the EP rankings, but like there are certain players like that should technically, like Teddy Stiga, Pronman has it 65.
Mm-hmm.
That's not insane. I mean, that was the last pick. We were right in that range. Javon Moore at 78. That's in this range right now. Yeah.
So we get one more pick before our wild card
Yes, sir.
pick, right? Okay.
Yeah, one more pick till our 2 wild cards, which we will explain when we get there. And then we have 2 bonus questions that are also worth extra points. So this is the last pick that could win you 15 points.
Oh, man. You're gonna have to give me a second here with this one. Oh, man.
Assuming you don't take my pick, I know who I am taking.
I am going to go... hold on. I got to pull it up here just so I've got a reference here. We're going to go prototypical Ducks. A
Ooh.
left shot Swedish defenseman.
Yes.
We're going Noel Franzen.
I'm sorry. You want to bring someone with what last name into this Ducks team?
Yeah, Cody Franzen light. No, I like, again, what he brings. He's smallish, 6 foot, 183 pounds, left shot defense. A little bit older side too, almost 18. He'll be 18 probably by the start of the season. His numbers are great in terms of when you look at his tracking numbers for offense. So 96 overall, 98 for offense, 94 for defense. Transition-wise, 59, not the greatest, but his J20 numbers, he got 20 goals as a defenseman in the J20. So he led all defensemen in Sweden's junior leagues in goals and points. He's just a very skilled offensive defenseman, a fluid skater. Obviously, the defensive side of things is the question mark for him, and also being a little bit smaller, he doesn't play a physical game, shies away from contact a lot, doesn't break up a lot of plays in his own zone. But he's that kind of boomer bust type, as Elite Prospect puts it. And again, that's what I'm going for with these late picks. Is if you're going to pick a guy here, take a swing for it. You know, if he booms and you get a player at this point, you're looking at a steal for this draft. And if the only question marks are defense and physicality, those are things you can hopefully work on. And as he gets older, you know, maybe he's skating the NHL at 6'1", 6'2", and gets around that 200-pound mark, and that physicality side of things isn't really an issue. Maybe he doesn't play a physical game, but he's not getting, you know, outbodied on every play. So I think when you look at, even at the J20 level, 20 goals and 44 points in 45 games for a defenseman, I don't think that's something you can overlook. He played 4 games in the SHL and did score a goal. So I don't know. I think, again, you know, he's just a player that I think, you know, will be a Carolina type pick, right? They love their analytic darling type players, so I think he's going to be a guy that could potentially be gone by this point. But I love these boomer bust picks at this point, whether it's taking a swing on younger players or taking a swing on guys who kind of stood out in one area. I think he's a good one to go with here.
I like it. That's an interesting pick. So I am between 2 players here. I am between a defenseman and a center. Oh, boy. All right. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. We are going to take the forward. So... oh, God, probably 10 years ago now at this point, if not longer ago, there was a very nice gentleman from Finland who came to play for the Ducks with his best friend. And his name was Saku Koivu. Saku Koivu has a son named Atos Koivu. Atos Koivu is... boy, you want to talk about a coach's kid. He's he's a very young player, 17.233. But he's already 6'1". He's a skinny kid, but Saku Koivu wasn't an overly physical player, so I don't think, nor was he an overly big player, so I don't think that's something that necessarily stands out in a concerning way. But he is a right shot, do it all, two-way center. And I think for 1,000 different reasons, that's a guy that, you know, if he has an opportunity to make the pros, it is going to be as a steady two-way depth center. And I think, again, you know, we talk about Nepo babies and nepotism and things like that, but he's going to have grown up around one of the smarter hockey players of the last, 30 years or whatever. Like, Saku Koivu was incredibly smart, incredibly effective. He had a hard work ethic. Like, he's going to kind of instill in this kid all the things that Jerome McGinley seems to have instilled in Tidge. Now, obviously, Atos is not as skilled as Tidge. He's clearly not a quality. He's not even ranked by Elite Prospect. But he is ranked 77th by Pronman. And I do think that his name and his potential pedigree lends itself to him being taken maybe earlier than some draft analysis would predict. But again, 9 goals, 13 assists, and 20 games played for the U18 Sarnia. 16 goals, 15 assists, and 28 games for the U20 Sarnia. Like, he has just produced. He had 1 assist in 5 games for Finland at the World Junior. So maybe that's what you say. As the competition increased, he struggled a little bit. And again, maybe that's why he's not higher up the draft board. But he is fairly young. He is a player who's going to have the opportunity to continue to develop, continue to mature, and can maybe make a name for themselves at a training camp in 4, 5, 6 years.
I like it. All right, this next one is very interesting for me. This wild card, the extra first round pick.
Yes, sir. So the thought behind this
yes,
is the Ducks trading up into the first round, trading back up to get into the first round.
So where are we saying this is around?
In my head, this is between 15 and 25.
Okay, perfect.
Probably
that's where
I would say between 10 and 20, maybe at the most optimal.
I was gonna say around 15 to 20 is what I was what my thought process is for this one. So,
who are you taking, bud? I'm really excited.
So I will get a couple things out of the way first. Is guys that I would like to take here, but I think will go sooner. Just because I would take them, but I don't think so. Carter Yakemchuk would be number 1. I think he's gone before we get to any 15 to 20. I think there's just no chance he makes it down to that level. Cole Eiserman's another one. I think there's a chance he makes it to 15 to 20, but I think somebody likes enough that he could be the best goal scorer in this draft and takes him. So he's gone. Then it leaves me with just 2 guys left. It leaves me with Consta Helenius. And it leaves me with my eventual pick. So for Consta Helenius, I think there's a chance he's available there. But again, I put him in that category as a guy that somebody falls in love with and goes 10, 11, 12, 13. Right? Like, I just think there's going to be enough people that love the fact that he really just does everything almost at an above average level that they're going to take him. He did it in Liga this year, so it's not like he was playing in the junior levels of Finland. He did it at the pro level, so I think that is going to lend it to him going a little bit higher. So that leaves me with my pick for this for where the Ducks would get at another pick in 15-20, and that is heading to Sweden via Norway and Michael Brandsteg Nygaard. Yeah, I just think that is the direction they go, especially after, for me, taking Caden Lindstrom at 3. You just get a very well-rounded, modern power forward, very projectable player. Elite Prospects has him as the 5th highest floor, number 2 power forward. So if you're the Ducks and you're going off Elite Prospects list, you walk away with the 1-2 power forwards in this draft in Caden Lindstrom and Brandsteg Nygaard. He's the ranked number 2A forward, and ranked 2 for his motor. Good production in the J20, where he only played 7 games but had 12 points. Moved to the Sweden's 2nd division, where he had 8 goals, 18 points in 41 games, and had 5 points for Norway at the World Junior Championships in 5 games. Just a very well-rounded player. One of the better forecheckers in the entire draft. Just looks like a guy, again, who's very projectable for a middle 6 role. And if the offense does come together at the NHL level, you're looking at a guy who could easily slide in to the top 6 and not look out of place. So just a very safe pick at this range. And I think when you're looking at potentially some of the big swings I mentioned, like the Carter Yakemchuks and Nicole Eiserman's not in the mix, if you're making a decision between, a Beckett Sinecki if he's in there, and Andrew Basha, a Liam Greentree, like, I think you're better off going for the higher floor here with Brandsteg Nygaard, so I like that pick.
I dig it, man. I dig it. I am going to disagree with you, and I am going to say that we have a faller, and that is who I am going to take. And yeah, just go ahead and give me Cole Iserman.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't want to overthink this. I think that there's an opportunity for them to again add elite goal scoring. He's such an elite goal scorer. I don't care that he's a left-hand shot. It literally doesn't matter. Um, he is bigger than you think. He's a pretty thick kid. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds, so he's probably closer to 5'10", 5'11". But if he's anywhere close to that 190 pounds, and he's able to use that build to get his shot off, he can score every different kind of way. He can score from a standstill. He can score with his feet moving. He can score on a one-timer. He can score on a hezzy. Like, he's just got all of the shooting talent in the world. Now, to our friend Chad's credit, he said something to me that I think is a very interesting thing, and anybody who knows me will find very funny that I'm picking him here. He sees him as a potential gimmick player, or as someone who is going to be limited by their lack of doing other things. He compared him a la NFL to Tavon Austin, very talented college player who did not find success in the pros due to a lack of size. I think if you're drafting Cole Iserman, what you're afraid of is he's Daniel Sprong, which is, sure, he might be able to put up 20 goals in fourth-line minutes, but you're never going to be able to rely on him to do more than that. He's never going to show the focus and the effort and the commitment to improving or trying even for the rest of his game. Again, Daniel Sprong has always had an overwhelming shot. That's why he was drafted by the Pittsburghs. That's why they tried to play him, because that shot is lethal. Problem is, he refused to do anything else you're supposed to do on a hockey field, and he didn't score enough goals to merit it. On a hockey field? What am I fucking talking about? Go fuck yourself.
I let that one slide, so I figured.
I appreciate that, bud. Anyways, this is one of those ones for me, man. I'm not going to overthink it. I'm just going to take someone. I'm just going to say the rest of the league is going to do something stupid. They're going to let this guy who was in the running for that top 3, top 2 pick, by the draft time last year, Cole Iserman was a player we knew was going to be at the top of this draft, and he has fallen and slipped and fallen everywhere except Tankathon, who has him at number 5. Stay strong, brothers. But yeah, I think he falls, and I could see the team just deciding, you know what, we're just going to take a risk and bet on goal scoring upside.
I honestly, I don't see why he's fallen so much. I don't see it. Like, there aren't any glaring negatives for me to his game. Like, he's just average in a lot of areas, but he is by far the best goal scorer in this draft, right? Like, he's not small, so it's not like you could say the Cole Caulfield effect is that, he was the best shooter in that draft, but he fell because of his size. Right. I think it's just the fact that there is a one standout attribute for this kid, and that's that he scores goals, and then nothing else stands out. He's an average skater, he's an average puck handler, he's average in his physicality and his size and his passing ability. Like, they're not bad, they're not negatives, they're just not positives. Like, they're not standout above average skill sets, right? They're just all average. I think when you do something as well as Cole Iserman does, and that's score goals, to say this kid falls out of the top 10 is very harsh. Like, this kid at every level he played at this year scored more than a goal per game. 58 goals in 57 games for the NTDP. 25 goals and 24 goals for still the NTDP, but at the USHL level. 9 goals in 7 games at the U18s. He played 81 games, and he scored 84 goals. That's absurd. That's beyond ridiculous. And now he is scored the most goals in NTDP history, which is more than Cole Caulfield. And for this guy to fall, like, again, I'd mentioned in mine, if he falls to the Ducks, you take him. He is my number 1 pick if he falls. I just can't see a team in that range that doesn't take him, that aren't going to be desperate for a goal scorer and let him slip that far. When you look at teams like Seattle desperately could use a player like Cole Eiserman.
Yeah.
To let him. I mean, even New Jersey could use a player like anybody could use a player like Cole Eiserman. In Wheeler and Prominence mock draft, they have him going 11 to the Buffalo Sabres, right? So there's just, I would love him, man. I would love him. You wouldn't really need another goal scorer for a few more picks after this if you're able to get him. I'm sure you love the shades of Phil Kessel comp that he has, and if it wasn't anything other than a positive here, he also is one of the younger players in the draft as well. So just a couple weeks away from being eligible for the 2025 draft. So a lot of things going for him there, man. I love the kid. I don't care if he can't play defense at the NHL level. This kid scores goals better than anybody in the draft, and I think you got to take him if he's there.
Yeah, I agree. I think, again, if you're only going to do one thing, you have to be insanely good at it.
Mm-hmm.
How everything about him says he is insanely good at this one thing, and it is what, to some people's point, is the most valuable thing in hockey, which is scoring goals. Again, maybe playing with Troy Terry and Leo Carlsson means it doesn't matter that he doesn't play defense. Maybe it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to being a one-trick pony for sure, but when that trick is significantly better than anybody else can do that trick, then I don't think it's fair to say he's a power play merchant or he's a goal scorer, and he is an elite goal scorer. So when that's all you're good at, that's fine. Because if Cole Eiserman at the NHL level is putting in 35 to 40 goals a season, I don't think anybody's going to care that the rest of his game is average because he's putting up 35 to 40 goals at the NHL level.
Right. Exactly. No, exactly. So yeah, that's my big swing as far as am I manifesting more than anything? Yeah. Yeah, I am. I also don't see a world in which they take Iginla and Eiserman, since neither of them are a right shot, but boy, that'd be a fun little weird thing to do. Okay. Next is the second wild card point. Now, this one is worth 50 points. This is the most valuable pick, and that is because we are saying any pick between rounds 4 and 7. All they have to do is take this player between rounds 4 and 7, and you get 50 points, and all but assuredly win the game.
All right. I think I've got my pick.
If you take my guy, I am going to be so furious.
I don't think there's no way. Well, hold on here though, but I just have to check another guy, and then I'm down to 2. So
God, I would be so I might never forgive you.
Okay. Between 40 and 70, right?
Between the 4th round and the 7th round. Mm-hmm. So really, it's between 98 and whatever the last pick is, because there's a comp pick this year. So the first 3 rounds are 97 picks.
Okay, I think I got my pick. Just pulling up his stuff here. Okay, so I'm going for another Swedish defenseman.
Good.
I gotta go for the most likely thing the Ducks would do, right?
Yeah.
I am going for a left shot Swedish defenseman playing for. I was gonna try and mess. I know it's not Vaxjo, but because there's a lot of accents above the A in the O, but I'm going to for the Lakers in Sweden. It's Alphonse Freij.
How do you spell it?
Freij. Ranked 37th by Elite Prospects, but 83rd by Corey Pronman. He's been a top defenseman in his age group for several years. Has a high-end shot. Good skater. Scored 14 goals and 33 points in 40 games.
You think he's going to fall? You think the 6'1" left shot Swedish defenseman is going to fall.
I think he's going 40 to 50 in that range.
No. Again, 4th round pick.
Oh, jeez. Okay. All right. You know what?
You're killing me, Edward.
Yeah, I'm killing you. I don't know why I thought that was. What do we? Sorry. Jeez. Wow. All right. You go.
I'll go first here.
I need to recover from that. I read that completely wrong.
So I am going to take a player who really, as far as I'm concerned, does exactly what you want hockey players to do. This is a player who I would say, if everything went well, is a better. I mean, what you're hoping is they turn into a better Josh Manson, I guess is the way I would say it. And that is Nate Mizzke. He is a 6'3" right shot defenseman, D+1. He's almost 19, about 18 and a half right now. Scored 7 goals for the for the Victoria Royals in the WHL. His skating isn't great. His puck handling isn't great, but he's got a really, really heavy shot. He makes a decent first pass, and he is a violent man. This is a prototypical third pair defenseman. This is a guy who is able to just eat space, attack rushing defenders, just get in the kitchen and just mess with them. And he's physical around the net. He's physical along the boards. He's physical in the corners. He's got a very heavy shot that could potentially create your occasional rebound and things like that. This certainly isn't a guy that you're going to be throwing out there when you need a goal, but he is absolutely someone you're perfectly fine putting out there if you're trying to not give one up. He's going to have to improve his skating. He's going to have to improve his puck handling. I would say he's a lesser Noah Warren in some sense, but that's why he's my 4th to 7th round Hail Mary, and Noah Warren went in the 2nd round. I just think there's a lot to like here, and in the event that he hits, he is a crowd favorite, and he provides a dynamic to the lineup that may or may not be there at that time. I mean, look, I guess what you're saying is in a perfect world, his skating develops good enough that he's Radko Gudas.
I like it a lot. And I'm going to come back here with a pick that is actually between rounds 4 and 7. And not, for some reason I read that as picks 40 to 70 instead of rounds 4 to 7. But I'm stealing a play from your book that a league that you've dipped in twice in your picks in the U.S. high school prep league.
Let go.
I am going for Shattuck St. Mary's player William Zellers. Same program that Jackson Lacombe came through. I always like the Ducks to take a swing on high school players, at least one of them in the draft. And when you've got kind of an evasive, quick player who has just dynamic skills, dynamic playmaking ability with his ability to beat players 1v1, something sits right with that. And again, he's not 6'7", again, playing against kids who are 5'8", 5'9".
Right.
He's 5'11", 170 pounds, and he's still producing 57 goals and 111 points in 54 games. So he is putting up over 2 points per game at that level, while not apparently having an elite shot, elite passing ability, elite hockey sense, or physicality. So I think there's something to be said there. It's just very tough to kind of highlight how his game can translate beyond this level. So I like it as a potential wild card pick that they think there is potentially more to his game, and that at the next level, that speed and that puck handling ability is going to take in places. So take a swing with the high school system that the Ducks are going to go back to a program they're well familiar with, and take William Zellers.
I like it. I like the pick. It's honestly almost like taking like a street baller.
Yeah.
What does he do? He's a good skater and he controls the puck. What else does he do? Well, hopefully he skates well and holds the puck long enough that somebody else does something.
You walked into the favelas of Brazil and you saw some kids
Right.
just got
Yeah,
unbelievable.
like I like it. I like the upside. I like the profile. This is a kid that I hadn't even really noticed, and I think the opportunity again. Shattuck St. Mary's is one of the prep schools I think you have more faith in than not, as far as developing kids. And if his handles and his skating are high level, man, that's a nasty little combination. So I like it. I like it a lot. It's almost a basketball pick for me.
And I just want to get one of these right. That's honestly, I have more faith in getting 5 points for Caden Lindstrom, and then beyond that, I think it's up in arms. But it'd be a fun draft day just to watch day 2 and see if one of these guys come up.
Oh, I know. I can't wait. We're gonna have to make a graphic. I'll have to figure something out.
Yeah.
All right, and on to the bonus questions. We're there. Okay. First bonus question, and again, we are drafting, but you get to go first. Eddy, who is the RFA most likely to be traded at the draft? It doesn't say at the draft on here, but I'm saying that verbally to you.
Okay, I think that it would be Max Jones as a piece to another trade.
Really?
I wanted to say Isaac Lindstrom, but I wanted to kind of go beyond what I felt like was the obvious. I think the most obvious one to be brought back is Jackson Lacombe. I can't say Benoit Olivier-Groulx just because he's been one of my faves for a long time. I think Brett Leeson has earned his spot on the Ducks for next season, so then it left me with Max Jones, Isaac Lindstrom, Gustav Lindstrom, who I think could just be gone, and Urho Vakanainen. And I went with Max Jones. I think there will be teams that would be interested in him being a former first-round pick and the injuries that he's had, and whether the Ducks have utilized him in the right way, that they could take a swing on him. Now, obviously, he's already 26 somehow, which is ridiculous to me. But I think there'll be some teams that would be willing to either trade for him outright and bring him in and see what they can get out of him, or he could be the more likely piece to a bigger trade where a team would be interested in seeing what they could get from him. And it wouldn't really cost them anything. It'd be a league minimum. Whereas Isaac Lindstrom, you could maybe see ask for a little bit more. And same with, Vakanainen or Jackson Lacombe. And Max Jones, you can get a league minimum to come into a team and just take a swing on that. He could be a legitimate third-line winger for your team. So I think he's the most likely RFA for the Ducks to be traded at the draft.
And that's an interesting pick. I like it. I get what you're saying. He's almost like Capo Caco in 3 years. Except, wasn't taken that high. Still, I like what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I am, however, going to go with Jackson Lacombe.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I think he has the most value of any of the UFA or the RFAs.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know where he's supposed to be on this team long term, given that Cam Fowler has 2 more years. And I don't think they're going to send Zellweger or Minchikov back down.
That's fair. Yeah.
And I like the way he plays. I like his game. The only thing, I almost went with Urho Vakanainen, but I think Vakanainen's game is different enough as far as being a more pure rush defending kind of breaking up plays at the blue line kind of guy. Not that Jackson Lacombe can't do that, but I do think someone will say that Jackson Lacombe's potential offensive ability and upside are worth taking a gamble, putting him in a position that maybe he's not going to get the time to in Anaheim because especially the left side is so stacked. I like the idea of moving him. Well, I don't like the idea, but I like the idea of him being the guy that I could see them saying, relative to what we're going to be able to do with him, to what we're going to be able to get for him, the pick or a prospect or whatever it ends up being is ultimately more attractive. I don't like that, but I do think that's it makes a lot of sense to me. All right, Eddie. Who is the player under contract most likely to be traded at the draft?
I didn't want to be the guy, but I'm gonna be the guy.
You gonna say it?
I'm gonna say it's Trevor Zegras is gonna be the most likely to be traded at the draft. I didn't want to be the guy. I really didn't want to be the guy. I was leaning Strome. I was leaning Troy Terry, but I'm gonna be the guy. And listen, I want to preface this with I don't think there's any validity to the rumors that the Ducks are shopping him. Sure, they're listening on him, but they're listening on a lot of other players, and I think a lot of those are overblown. But I just see it as a team maybe taking that as, well, let's throw something ridiculous at the Ducks and see if he's actually available, and then that leads to maybe something materializing there. And obviously, taking Caden Lindstrom at 3, having Cutter Gauthier coming up, still having Terry and McTavish and Leo Carlson, maybe it's time, right? So I want him to stay. That's the first thing I want to say with there. But I think there's a scenario that all things come together and some team really wants him, and it happens. So I'm gonna say Trevor Zegras.
Wow, I did not see that coming. Wow. Yeah, you really caught me off guard with that one.
I was heavily leaning Ryan Strome as some sort of make weight and a bigger deal for the Ducks to bring in, a Martin Netchas or a Patrick Laine or something like that. But no, I don't know. I just have a feeling if anything was to happen big like that, it's something to do with Trevor Zegras heading out the door.
I am gonna make a pick that is honestly, I would rather be right for this one than the one before it. I'm just gonna take Cam Fowler and see if I can get lucky. I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think he's going anywhere. But if there was a summer where he could make a move, I think he can still. I think there is still enough of a reputation around him as far as being such a great skater and a smart player that somebody could talk themselves into. Fuck it, let's take him on, see what happens. It's only 2 years left in the deal. He doesn't have any signing bonus money. At least I think he doesn't have any signing bonus money. Let me double check that. But historically, Anaheim doesn't do signing bonus. Yeah, no signing bonuses. 2 years left. He makes 7.5 this year and 6.25 next year. He's got the 6.5 cap hit. He's 32. He's getting up there a little bit. He's going to be 33 this year, but his skating is so good. I've said this for a while. I really do think that he has the opportunity to be similar to Brian Campbell in that where his skating is good enough that he can play for another 10 years, and he's smart enough that he can play for another 10 years. It'll be about if he can move or if he does move, if a new coach and a new system and a fresh start can get more out of him than he's been able to give in Anaheim.
Well, we did it. No, actually, I do have a question. I feel like the answer is no. But if any of these guys get taken outside of where we've picked them to get taken, do we get points or no? Has to be at the spot we've picked them to get taken.
I mean, do you want to say you get half points?
Yeah,
or
like
1 point?
if you have Javon Moore going at 66, but he goes at 68, I feel like you should get half points for that. Because you had him getting picked, you just had him in the wrong spot of getting picked.
Okay.
Because those picks are so close together, right? 31, 32, 35. So I think we gotta give ourselves some. Well, we can figure it out, but if that
no,
does
that's a
happen,
fair point. I'm certainly open to figuring that out and seeing how it goes.
Yeah, just because the Ducks have picks so close together that we could really see something come of it, where these guys are likely going to be available in that range, and we got 2 swings at the pot in the early 30s, and then 2 picks almost back to back in the third round, so early third round. So it definitely could be something that's possible. So
Theoretically, if you got every pick right, one person, you would have 165 points.
I'm buying a lottery ticket, or I'm sending this I'm sending this recording to NHL's scouts,
Yeah, there you
to
go.
NHL GMs. Be like, listen, guys, like, get me in there, get me on salary. So
All right, so let's wrap it up with one last question.
yeah,
Of all the picks that you made, which one would you be the most excited for the team to make? Because I'll
I
tell
mean, I
you,
would love for them to get the extra first, but I feel like I got to go with one of the picks that we had from what we already had.
yeah, one of the
Um,
players, let's say in that between pick 3 and pick 79 range. Although I'm
yeah,
not going to say you're not wrong about, Brandon Nygaard. Like if they traded up and took him at, 14, 15, 16, that'd be a nice little show, of course. So I see what you're saying.
yeah. I feel like at number 3 we're gonna get somebody good no matter what. So I'm honestly okay with whoever we get at that point. I think my favorite pick of the ones I had would be Jet Luchenko at 35. I think he's a mid first round talent, and because of his size, he's being ranked in this range. I would be probably most happy with getting him at that spot.
Yeah.
Who do you got? Is your boy EJ
I
Emery?
think it has to be, man. I mean, look, I will say it this way. As shitty as it is, it really is between the first 3 of Iginla, Emery, and Letourneau.
Yeah, that's the same. It was between Lindstrom, Alec, and Luchenko
But
for me.
I'll
So.
say EJ Emery because I just think everything about him makes sense. And, like, because of what we know about Anaheim's ability to draft defensemen, I mean, they've got. Yeah. Anyways, but because we know about Anaheim's ability to draft defensemen, I would feel even more confident about his ability to continue to develop than I do now.
Yeah,
And
no,
it would be awesome.
that's fair.
And again, to just have
It,
another SoCal kid on the roster would rock. I would be very happy.
yeah, yeah, it was a coin flip for me between Alec and Luchenko. But I felt like at 31, 32, you could get either EJ Emery or Charlie Alec, so I had to go for Luchenko at 35. If
Yeah.
you can get one of those kind of knocked off there. Let's quickly, so everybody knows, just because it's been almost 2.5 hours, to quickly recap our picks. So for me, at pick 3, Caden Lindstrom. Pick 31/32, I had Charlie Alec. Pick 35, my 2 picks were Jet Luchenko and Sasha Boisvert. Pick 58, my 2 picks were Aaron Kiviharju and Jesse Pulkkinen. Pick 66, my 2 picks were John Mustard and Adam Jecko. Pick 68 was Igor Surin and Matvey Gridin. And pick 79 was Lucas Fisher and Noel Franzen. Wild card for the extra first was Michael Brandseg Nygaard. My wild card number 2 for rounds 4 to 7 was William Zellers. My RFA most likely be traded was Max Jones, and my player with contract most likely be traded at the draft was Trevor Zegras. And your recap.
Okay, my 3rd overall pick is Tej Iginla. My Oilers pick, 31-32, is EJ Emery. My 2 picks for the 35 pick is Dean Letourneau and Emil Hemming. For the pick 58, it's Justin Poirier and Maxim Massey. Pick 66, Brody Zemer and Javon Moore. Pick 68, Jack Pridham and Noel Powell. Pick 79, Kevin He and Atos Koivu. Wild card extra first, Cole Iserman. Wild card 2, rounds 4 through 7, Nate Mizkey. RFA most likely to be traded at the draft is Jackson Lacombe, and the player with the contract most likely to be traded at the draft, because I live in a fantasy land, is Cam Fowler.
I just hope we get some points on the board, man.
Yeah,
I really do.
I would like to. If in total we crack 10 points, I'll be ecstatic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
This
I
is a
was
real
gonna say, like,
putting our stick in the ground kind of moment for us, man.
yeah,
Planting
I
the
want those
flag.
50 points. You know what? I want William Zellers for 50 points, and just I'll be more excited.
Can you imagine
for
if we
that one hitting.
both hit 50 points?
Nate Miskey and William Zeller. That'd be great. That would be like insane.
Here's the
points.
other thing about that that's so funny. It's 2 picks. That's it. We have
Yeah.
a 4th and a 6th. That's it. Now, they can obviously trade around and things like that. But yeah.
William Zeller's at 4, Nate Mizzke at 6. It
God,
would be great if it was just split. We got every single pick and it was just split between both
back and
sides.
forth, yeah.
Yeah,
That would be very funny.
I don't know. I think we got a good shot of getting at least somebody on here goes.
For sure.
But we'll see. I'm excited. What do we got? What is it? June 28th is draft.
June 29th.
Okay, so we got 2 weeks from this Friday until draft
Yeah.
day. So we're gonna have to sit on this for a bit. Which
You
is
want to tease next weekend or next week?
yes. Next week, next Wednesday, we got an old friend of the show coming back. Cam Robinson had reached out to us, asking us what the hell we're doing, not reaching out to him to come on the show. So he said, "Boys, what's going on?"
Said, sorry, bro, you're a big timer.
Yeah, well, so listen, last time we ended up having to get him on from the airport, so I felt kind of bad. So we haven't done anything, and we also haven't recorded anything for a while. So I just kind of said, you know what, we're gonna probably do our own thing this year. But hey, Cam is a legend, and he reached out to us and said, hey, what are you guys doing this time around? Do you want me to come back? And we said, of course, we would love for you to come back. So we've got another pre-draft show for you, unplanned, but we've got obviously an expert coming on. So we've got our picks here. We'll probably bring up our picks to Cam and have him kind of walk through some of these guys, and then have him go through who would be some of his best picks at some of these spots for the Ducks leading into the draft. So you've got our takes, you're gonna have Cam's takes, and that will lead you to about a week before the draft to watch both shows and really get an insight of who the Ducks could go for at the draft this year.
And if you have any questions, let us know.
Yeah, we'll post that on Twitter as well, just in case. But yeah, if you do have any questions, feel free to DM us on Twitter and let us know what you'd like to ask Cam. Any draft related questions about who the Ducks could
Prospect
take this year.
related questions.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that as well about some of the players the Ducks have in their system already. So if you do have any questions, shoot us a DM and we'll be happy to send them Cam's way.
All right, everybody. That'll do it. It is quite a long episode, so thank you, everybody, for riding with us. We hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you think.
All right, take care, guys.
Bye, everybody.